This noise supposedly cost $50,000 to fix, and because of it, I swear I'm never buying another cheap Ferrari. Even though I've had some success buying other bargain exotic and luxury brands with a little bit of DIY magic and intuition, we've repaired and enjoyed Porsches, Audis, and even a Bentley. But when it comes to Ferraris, either I'm really bad at picking them or they're just terrible at making them. Now, I'm always looking for a deal, so I tend to buy wrecks, literally, and well, that's an obvious problem. But even in the cases where I've just bought a Ferrari that looks like it needs a little bit of paint and love, usually they end up as a worst case scenario, and that's exactly what happened when I picked up this drop top California. Even though it looked pretty amazing from just a few feet away, the fact that the keys were falling apart should have been sign enough that I was getting myself into trouble again. But I didn't think much of it because a lot of auction cars come with keys that look like they're occasionally used as a dog's chew toy. It's even worse than this. Someone broke the flip-up blade off, so all I've got is this basic valet key here. I had to get a replacement, but of course I wasn't going to go to the dealership for that because you all know replacement keys at the dealership are a complete ripoff. Instead, I went to Car Keys Express and ordered a snap key. All it takes is to select your make and model, then pick the key most similar to yours. I've got this 4-button one right here, and last, take a few pictures of the blade. Then Car Keys Express will ship you a freshly cut key along with an easy installer. With the installer plugged into your car, just open its app and it will take you step by step on how to sync your new key. And once you follow these simple steps, your key is ready to go. And as easy as that, we've got a fully functional replacement key for my new-to-me Camaro without leaving home. And even better is that a snap key costs up to 75% less than what a replacement at the dealership would. All you have to do is visit Car Keys Express by hitting my link down in the description. And if you've got an extraordinary situation, like maybe you lost your last set of keys, they do offer on-site solutions. All you have to do is head on over to Car Keys Express. Now, up until pretty recent, the prices of these Californias were ridiculous. They were regularly trading hands up to $100,000, with mediocre examples still fetching around $75,000. And this one looked pretty straightforward in its auction listing. It didn't say that there was anything severely wrong with it, just that it had some rock chips and curbed wheels. Now, I ended up with this Ferrari kind of on a coincidence, and here's how that happens at the auction. I put in a ton of proxy bids. These are pre-bids that happen well in advance of the auction, a lot of times days before they ever run through the block. But when I put these in, they're all super low balls. So the chance of winning these cars is virtually 0%. And even if you end up the high bidder at a really low price, a lot of times the dealers will just take them and run them another day in hopes that they'll get more money. So these lowball bids don't win you cars usually, but what they do is they'll generate you a report and let you know, hey, you lost these cars today, but here's what they sold for. They'll give you the actual sale prices or tell you, here's the high bid, but it didn't sell. It gives you a lot of great data to go off of that I take as real data because bidders don't lie, but book values a lot of times do. So it just kind of lets me know what the market is for these cars. I always thought that California was selling for way more than it's worth. And like I said, these cars are valued at this point in time somewhere between like $70,000 and $80,000 in just mediocre condition. And when the day of this auction came, I wasn't there in person. I wasn't participating online. I just got a call from the auction to let me know that they had saw I was a bidder on this car. I wasn't even apparently the high bidder, but they said the dealer wanted to get rid of it so bad that whatever my high bid was, they were willing to sell it to me for. Now, I put somewhere in the 50s. At that point in time, I didn't even remember what the number was, but I'm like, that car should cost like 5 figures more than I put in. So, I mean, sure, I kind of want it for that low price, but how bad could it be? The one huge advantage that I had is that I knew exactly where the car was because it was local to me and the pictures were in a lot of a dealership I'm very friendly with. I've even shot a video there. I told the auction representative I'm interested, but I need a few hours to think about it, so I'll call you back. And I immediately got on the phone with my friend that worked at the dealership and asked him, what's the scoop on this red California that you guys are wholesaling? And so he found out all the information he could, and he said, look, this car came in on trade. Cosmetically, it's pretty rough for us, and when he says for us, they retail the highest end, most pristine, perfect, exotic cars in the entire area. So to me, anything that's below perfect is probably still in pretty good shape, especially when you consider what some of my Ferraris look like. And he told me that the tech took it for a ride, and he said the suspension was so shot between the cosmetic stuff on it and the fact that the suspension needs to be completely replaced. He's like, we're not touching it. It could come with more problems, but it's a cheap price. If you want it, come down, pick it up. At a price like $20,000+ under retail. How could I lose? That night, I went and picked up the new to me California and hopped on the road. And even though it came with the check engine light on, it seemed to run and drive fine, except that suspension. It was really worn. This sports car rode more like a Lincoln Town Car. It was loose and floaty, but then I heard a noise coming from the rear. I immediately thought this noise might have been related to the worn suspension. It was pretty mild and didn't concern me, but then I heard it again. Since this was my first time with the car and I had immediately felt this worn out suspension, I figured that the noise went along with it and it was probably no big deal. But as I continued down the road and heard it again, I started paying a little bit more attention. I turned the radio down because it was that subtle of a noise you wouldn't hear it with the radio on. And then I was able to notice more of a pattern. So if the car was in 5th gear and you were coming to like a red light and you started slowing down, it had to be in 5th gear. Upon deceleration, it would make this noise, almost like a little crunch. And then if you stayed in 5th gear because the light then turned back to green quickly, it would make the noise again. So putting it in manual mode, keeping it in 5th gear, decelerating and accelerating, I could replicate this noise every single time. This was just so strange. It wasn't making that noise while it was shifting in gear. It wasn't making that noise the entire time while it was in 5th gear, and it was shifting perfectly, it was shifting quickly, and it was accelerating just fine. So I still wanted to believe that maybe it didn't have anything to do with the transmission. Maybe something was just rubbing up against something and that RPM in that gear was causing it. And well, that's quite a bit of wishful thinking. The only way we're going to figure it out is by putting this thing up in the air and driving it and see if the noise remains. All right, I just unbolted the lower main pan here, and I'll show you what I found. See that cord? Someone flex taped LED lights all along the bottom panel. They're really tight. I can't pull this out of the way because look, it's being held on by the cord. Good news is there's like no fluid leaks. This transmission is known to leak like right under the bottommost rear area when it has a problem, and well, we don't seem to have that. But the noise is obviously still happening. And this frickin' tape is really strong. I want to know who makes this tape. And I was really hoping to find a line or a heat shield rubbing up against another moving part, but this noise is clearly coming from the inside of the frontmost part of the gearbox. And this is a huge problem because this specific transmission is known to have multiple very complex and expensive issues, especially on the earlier versions, and the California was one of the first cars to use this gearbox. It's made by Getrag and it's the 7-speed power shift. Ferrari has put it in almost all of their front and mid-engine cars since the California. It's also used in the latest $1 million Ford GT and a few of the Mercedes AMG models. So basically every single car that uses this thing costs well in excess of $100,000, and for that you would think it would be of decent quality. But even low mileage weekender cars are experiencing these problems and leave owners with huge shop bills, and Ferrari has done little to help. Earlier on, when an out of warranty customer would come in with a California that wouldn't shift or a 458 that was leaking hydraulic fluid, Ferrari would tell them that they need a complete transmission replacement, sometimes costing around $50,000. These problems became so prevalent that it was finally looked into by Ferrari, and a few different service bulletins were released explaining how to repair the most common issues. And since these were only service bulletins and not a recall, again, if you were out of warranty, you were out of luck. On the flip side, Mercedes recognized these issues with the gearbox on the early AMG GTs and offered a Goodwill extended warranty of 8 years on them. So even though the typical Ferrari owner has deep pockets and might spend what I did on an entire used Ferrari for just a transmission replacement, a lot of people were totally offended by Ferrari's $50,000 solution, and that's opened up the market for independent shops to fix these. This business must be so lucrative for them. Everybody seems to be very tight-lipped. There's not a single DIY article I found online to do your own fix, but there is one guy who's made some really really good videos on this specific gearbox. His name is Micah, and he goes by the Hollywood Mechanic, and he has one video outlining every single problem he's run into with this specific transmission, and it's unbelievable. Things from seals popping out of place to wires fraying and sensors failing. It's clear that it's not one issue. It could be a range of a million different things, but the strangest part in our situation is that I've never once heard of just like a funny noise coming from the transmission. Usually what happens is that your car won't move, or it will only move in a few gears and it's missing others. And in a lot of cases, you'll see a bunch of fluid seeping out from underneath it. And ours is really clean. There's no fluid. Not to mention, our car has like around 40,000 miles on it. So I figured that this gearbox repair or replacement had already been done at least once. So I did reach out to Micah and I asked his opinion on it. And he told me that it's not a guarantee, but there's a shot that we might be able to fix it just by running a gearbox adaptation. Now, this is a really simple process. All you do is plug in a diagnostic reader, hit a few buttons, and run your adaptation. Basically, I had to hold my foot on the brake, and you'll see the RPMs fluctuate as the gearbox is trying to figure out what's going on. It's probably very technical, but I assume that it's reporting data back to its transmission computer so that it can operate properly while you're driving it. It all seemed pretty quick and painless, and well, here's what happened. So after doing our adaptation, the gearbox warning light showed up there, and it threw a couple fault codes in the transmission module. So couldn't clear them. That light will not go off until they're cleared, but we haven't really driven it, so let's go ahead and drive it now and see if our noise goes away in 5th gear. Well, that's not good. All right, but here, we're in 5th right now. So I'm gonna let off the gas. I'm gonna do it again. What the heck is going on? Okay, so first off, it didn't make the noise in 5th gear. I decelerated and accelerated a couple times, but I don't know if you guys noticed, it seems like it's skipping some gears. Definitely skips 2nd gear. On, I'm gonna put it in manual mode here. So if I downshift, yeah, you see it went from 7th to 5th. So right now we're in 5th. I'm decelerating. It would do it every single time. So we eliminated our noise, but we also eliminated 6th gear and 2nd gear. So hold on, I'm gonna downshift. There's 3rd, going down another gear. Oh my goodness, what a mess. Now that we have a couple gears missing, we have the classic failed Ferrari get-trag gearbox. Along with those missing gears came a few trouble codes, and they pointed to the synchronizers. Now, some of that video I showed you earlier from German Auto House, they had very similar trouble codes, and they found all sorts of broken metal in their gearbox. If I was able to even source the parts to repair this gearbox, things like shift forks and synchros, I would imagine that the repair might even DIY cost me over $10,000. And I think the takeaway here isn't that I bought a cheap Ferrari and it came with cheap Ferrari problems. I think it's that Ferrari started using this gearbox, again, I think with the California, and they continue to put it in every single one of their cars, and these failures were frequent all the way up until like the Ferrari 488, which came out 8 model years later. The fact that Mercedes issued a extended warranty on their AMG GTs when they started using this gearbox goes to show you that, well, one car company recognized a major issue and the other one put that issue on the car's owners, which is, well, unacceptable in my opinion. Transmission issues aside, this car had a lot of other problems, but they were all pretty minor, and it would have made this car a very good project Ferrari, because for what I paid for it, around the price of what one of those new Nissan Z's cost, you've got a convertible V8 Ferrari that sounded great and it felt pretty darn fast. But I took note of some of those other things, and I just want to go over them with you really quick. Now, the exterior cosmetic condition, I already showed you the rock chips and the curb wheels, but one of the funny things that you wouldn't see unless you took a close look were the headlights. They have these things that are called jewels. They go over the LEDs inside the headlights, and they're known to just fall apart, which is a testament to Ferrari's quality. A $250,000 car has headlight pieces that fall apart internally. Ferrari wants to sell you a whole new headlight. You can basically disassemble it and glue back in place. all the pieces because, well, they just fall right inside the headlight housing. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but when I was driving at night, the gauge cluster was all lit up except for the tach. So the backlight for the tach was completely out. You got to take the dashboard apart. The dashboard needed a little bit of leathery trimming anyway. So again, it would have been something you could take to an upholstery shop, get done while it's out. Fix your little light bulbs back there. But my God, for a much more modern Ferrari than what I'm used to, these cars are pretty poorly put together. And this entire time, I haven't even brought up why the check engine light was on the dashboard, which on the surface looked like a crazy issue. It had a crank cam correlation code, which is exactly what we went through on a Porsche Panamera recently. We had to throw a whole new timing kit on it. Now, I don't think this car needed a whole new timing kit, and I don't think it had a severe timing system issue. They're just these actuators that live under the valve covers. They break. They're known to break on the Maseratis. Ferrari stocks this part, which tells me that they're replacing them all the time. They're like 150 bucks each. It's a few hours on either side. So again, it would have made for a great project car, except for the whole transmission situation. I sent this car to auction with a mechanical issue disclosure, and luckily I bought it right, so I didn't lose anything on it. I literally broke even, and it sold very quickly. Goes to show you, people still want to live out their dream of owning a cheap Ferrari until they find out there is no such thing. Now, I hope you guys learned something from this video. If you did, be sure to give it a huge like, and if you're not already following me on Instagram, where I post new projects to the channel before they go live here, well, just follow me or hit the link down in the description. I can't thank each and every one of you enough for watching today, and I'll catch you very soon.